When should I use Garden Trust? Do I put down gallery now? How do I deal with chickweed? We've got answers to these questions and more coming up on Garden Sense. Hey everybody, I'm Tim Ward and welcome back to Garden Sense. Well folks, it was exactly 1 week ago today that we kicked off our annual Turf Trust Triple Play. And only 6 days after we kicked that off, we actually ran out of product. Folks, we have the best customers in the world, and we thank you so much for the support that we've had from you over the past week. Now, don't worry, we do have more coming in. In fact, it's actually expected to arrive later today. So make sure you head over to rosensonline.com a little bit later today and check it out. We should have all of our Turf Trust Triple Play promotion packages back in stock. So while we're waiting for that product to come back in stock, we did want to address 5 questions that were received last week. So buckle up everybody, let's jump right in. The first question is from Jim. Hi Tim, can you explain please the difference between Plant Trust and Garden Trust? Is there a list of plants and shrubs that do better with Garden Trust? So Plant Trust and Garden Trust are different, and there are specific scenarios where you would want to use one or the other product. But before we get started, I want to reiterate the fact that if you have accidentally used the quote-unquote wrong product in a particular application, you haven't actually caused any damage to the plant. So if you use Plant Trust in a scenario where you should have used Garden Trust or vice versa, you are not harming the plant at all. It is still a fertilizer. The plant is still going to benefit from the fertilizer you gave it. It's just that Plant Trust and Garden Trust are formulated in a way that are optimally designed for specific types of plants. So let's run through that list real quick. Garden Trust is ideal for vegetable gardens, flower gardens, or flowering trees and shrubs. So, for example, if you have a rose bush, you would want to use Garden Trust. If you are putting in a vegetable garden, you would want to use Garden Trust. Now, why is that? Well, it really comes down to the formulation and specifically the NPK ratio. In the terms of Garden Trust, you have a 15-15-14 formulation. That's the NPK. That's nitrogen, that is phosphorus, and potassium. A more even or equal NPK ratio is better for flowering. It's better for producing fruit. And that's really why Garden Trust has been formulated in that way. Now with Plant Trust is not as high on the phosphorus and the potassium levels, but it's really high on the nitrogen level. And the reason for that is Plant Trust is geared towards your non-flowering plants. So it works really well on your trees and your shrubs that don't produce flowers. And so that's really the rule of thumb. If it's producing flowers or if it's producing fruit or a vegetable, you want to use Garden Trust. If it is not, you want to use Plant Trust. And again, Plant Trust is really going to gear towards keeping that plant green. It's all about the foliage. So, you know, again, if you have a maple tree that you want to keep nice and green and healthy, or if you have an arborvitae, you're going to want to use a Plant Trust. But again, going to my previous example, a rose bush, a vegetable garden, something like that, you're going to want to use Garden Trust. I will reiterate again, if you have accidentally swapped those and been applying them, applying Garden Trust in a situation that Plant Trust requires or vice versa, you have not harmed the plant. But what might happen is if you've put Plant Trust in an area where Garden Trust would better be served, you may not get as large of a crop of vegetables or of apples if you're using it on your apple trees, or you may not get quite as many blooms, or the blooms may not quite be as bright as usual. Likewise, on the Plant Trust side, it's still going to green up if you've used Garden Trust on your arborvitaes or any type of shrub or tree that you have, but it may not be enough nitrogen that it could really handle, and so it just may not be quite as green as normal. Again, folks, you haven't hurt the plant at all if you swap those out, but again, your general rule of thumb, flowers, vegetables, or fruits, you're using Garden Trust. And if we're talking about just foliage, green plants, trees and shrubs, you want to use Plant Trust. And obviously both products are available over at rosensonline.com. The next question is from Ivan. Tim, when is a good time to put down gallery? I do plan on doing some overseeding, so if I do, I won't put down dimension. I couldn't tell from the label if gallery will inhibit tall fescue germination. So if you plan to overseed, you do not want to use gallery. Gallery and dimension operate in the exact same way in the sense that they create a chemical barrier on the soil surface that prevent seeds from germinating. Now they're designed for weeds, but they will very effectively prevent grass seed from germinating as well. So what you need to do is decide whether or not you want to put down gallery or if you want to overseed. Now here's the thing. Gallery really should be put down around March 15th. Now, we've had some unusually warm weather, and so putting it down a couple of weeks early is going to be okay. So, ideally you could even put it down now. You're going to be just fine. But you're not going to be able to overseed for at least 60 days after putting down gallery. Now, I wouldn't really recommend waiting to overseed 60 days. And the reason for that is if you've already put down gallery because it's warm enough, then it's going to be quite warm by the time you're ready to start that overseeding. And that's not really the optimal time to be overseeding anyway. So if it were me, unless you have a bare lawn right now, I would actually put down gallery to take care of those weeds. And then in the fall, I would focus on my overseeding. Question number 3 is from Victor. Hi, Tim. I just overseeded in the late fall and want to pick up your triple play package. Would you recommend the Turf Trust maintenance package or starter package? So we always recommend the starter package, and the reason for that is the starter fertilizer is a slightly better formulation than the maintenance fertilizer. Well, why is that? Well, depending on where you live, unless you are seeding or sodding, you have to use a fertilizer that has no phosphorus, called phosphorus-free fertilizing, right? And that's really where that maintenance fertilizer comes in. It is a 24-0-12, and that 0 means no phosphorus. There are some states and some counties within certain states that have basically eliminated the use of phosphorus for fertilizing lawns unless you're seeding or soldering, which is the entire reason it's called maintenance. It's because you're just maintaining your lawn. The reason the other fertilizer is called starter fertilizer is because it's 24-12. And again, for those areas where you're only allowed to use phosphorus when you're seeding or sodding, that's the ideal fertilizer to use. Now, if you live in an area that doesn't have those types of restrictions like I do, I would use a starter formulation 100% of the time. I have been using the Turf Trust starter formula, the 24-12, for years, and I use it for all 4 applications. So that's actually what we would recommend. But again, I don't know exactly where you live. I don't know what your local ordinances is. So make sure you educate yourself before you purchase. Now, the next question is actually from Maryland, and it's actually a perfect segue into our Weed of the Week. Tim, my yard is loaded with chickweed. When can I kill it, and with what product? Thanks for the question, Marilyn. So common chickweed is one of those weeds that everybody has to deal with at some point because it is found in virtually every state in the country. Now, what makes it tough is it's actually an annual winter weed, and it often germinates in the fall. It is a prolific spreader of seeds. A single plant can produce thousands of seeds. It reflowers throughout the entire season, which again makes it very difficult to control because it's flowering and it's dropping more seeds. In addition, fragments of the plant can actually replant themselves. So when you combine all those things, you have a weed that is very, very difficult to eradicate, but not impossible. And really, you need to take a 2-step process. Now, you already have chickweed, you've identified it, so what you want to do first is hit it with something like Weed Beater Ultra. We have a couple of versions of Weed Beater Ultra available over at Rosen's Online. We really like the ready-to-use hose applicator product. Again, it's very easy to connect right to your hose and spray down your lawn, and the dial is already set that you don't have to measure anything. So it's a great product and available, again, over at rosensonline.com. Once you kill it, though, it's very likely that it could come back, towards the fall, again, because some of those seeds will stay dormant in the soil. So what you actually want to do is early October, maybe even late September, you want to put down an application of Gallery. Again, Gallery creates that chemical barrier on the soil surface that helps prevent seed germination. So between the Bonides Weed Beater Ultra that you're going to put down now to kill the chickweed, and then again an application of Gallery in the fall, you're going to be starting that process of ending that annual cycle of chickweed. Now, I can't promise that next spring you're not going to have some chickweed because, again, it spreads very, very prolifically. But if you take these steps, you should have a lot less. And hopefully, within an 18-month, call it a 2-year period, you'll be able to eradicate it completely. The final question for today is from Bob. Greetings, Tim. What is the preferred application sequence for the Triple Play products? So the sequence of the Triple Play products actually depends a little bit on when you're putting them down. Now, ideally, you're going to put down the Turf Trust fertilizer and the Turf Trust broadleaf weed control with Gallery around March 15th. And believe it or not, those products can be put down the exact same day, and it doesn't matter the order. You can put down Gallery first, or you can put down the fertilizer first. If you're applying them on the same day, it doesn't matter. Now, Dimension is usually going to be put down a little bit later because, again, we're really kind of focusing on that crabgrass and some of those grassy weeds. And typically, you're going to want to wait until early April to kind of put that down. So in a perfect world, you're putting down Gallery and the Turf Trust fertilizer around March 15th, and then you're putting Dimension down a couple of weeks later in early April. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, depending on where you are in the country, you may not even be able to start putting down your fertilizer or your Gallery until late March or early April, again, depending on the weather. So if that's the case and you can't even start the process until early April, then you can actually put down all 3 products at the exact same time, meaning the same day. And again, it does not matter what order. You can put Dimension, the fertilizer, Gallery, swap it around. It doesn't really matter. Again, ideally, you're going to be putting down the first 2 products right around March 15th. That's what we always recommend to people, unless, again, you've got snow on the ground. And then you're going to put down that Dimension in early April. And if you follow that timing, each and every year, your lawn should get better and better and better as time passes on. All right, just a couple final thoughts. Folks, again, the Turf Trust Triple Play is going on right now over at rosensonline.com. Now, these packages are designed for 5,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet, and you can purchase them with either the maintenance fertilizer or the starter fertilizer. And again, if you already watched this video, you heard me kind of walk through the difference between the two. Now, I understand that we are currently out of stock on those items, and the reason is simply because we ran out of Gallery. We had so many bags of Gallery flying out the door in the last 6 days, we actually ran out. The good news is, though, is today a truck is arriving from ProTrust Products with a ton of Gallery on it, more fertilizers. We're going to have everything that you need, and we shouldn't be running out anytime soon. So head over to rosensonline.com and take advantage of our Turf Trust Triple Play. Folks, thank you so much for the time that you've spent with us today. It really does mean a lot to us. Remember, if you have questions, please email me directly, tim@rosensonline.com. Again, those emails come directly to me, and give me 48 hours or so to respond to them. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. This is a really busy time of year for us, but each and every one of your questions is important, and I promise that if we receive it, we will respond. Folks, Thanks so much for your time. Again, I hope you have an amazing rest of the week. God bless.